Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales that we're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I felt the weight of my own deception pressing against my chest, yet I still smiled. A confident, charming smile, the kind that had carried me through many situations before, the kind that made people believe I was exactly who I wanted them to see. Jared sat across from me, his smirk lazy and self-assured, completely unaware that my heart was racing, not from excitement, but from the vibration of my phone against the polished table. David. My husband's name flashed across the screen, and for the first time that evening, my stomach twisted. He wasn't supposed to call. He was supposed to be at work, deep in another late-night shift, buried under projects that kept him out of my way. Jared leaned in slightly, amused. Not gonna get that. I hesitated, then picked up the phone, forcing a playful tone. Hey, love. David's voice was calm. Too calm. Where are you right now? A bead of sweat threatened to form at my temple, but I masked it with a soft chuckle. Oh, you know me, I teased. Out on a scandalous date. Silence. Then, his voice came again, steady as ever. Turn around. My breath hitched. No. Slowly, I twisted in my seat, my gaze scanning the dimly lit restaurant. And then I saw him. David. Sitting at a table in the far corner. Watching me. Next to him sat a woman. Not just any woman. A composed, poised brunette, exuding quiet confidence. A lawyer. And just like that, my perfect little game shattered. A cold dread slithered down my spine as my gaze locked with David's. He didn't wave again. He didn't move. He just watched, an unreadable expression masking whatever storm brewed beneath his carefully composed exterior. Jared, oblivious to the tension sinking its claws into my chest, reached across the table, running his fingers lightly over my wrist. You all right? I forced myself to breathe. Think. My mind raced to spin a narrative, something clever, something believable. But my throat had gone dry, and my body, once so effortlessly in control, felt stiff, trapped. I swallowed hard and turned back to my phone. David, I said, keeping my voice light, casual. What a surprise. What are you doing here? His tone was maddeningly calm. Change of plans. Thought I'd grab a bite to eat. A beat of silence. Then quieter, sharper. Imagine my surprise when I happened upon my wife, deep in conversation with another man. Jared's voice cut in. Who's that? I ignored him. My fingers tightened around my phone. No. This isn't how it's supposed to go. I was always in control. I dictated the terms. You think this is a date? I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. David, don't be ridiculous. Jared and I are old friends. Just catching up. David tilted his head slightly, his gaze piercing through me from across the restaurant. Then why are you sweating, sweetheart? I wasn't. Was I? The woman beside him suddenly shifted, setting her drink down with quiet precision. She met my eyes, polite but unreadable, her lips curving into a faint smile. Nina, is it? Her voice was smooth, professional, calculated. I'm Vivian. I froze. The name felt like the sharp edge of a blade against my skin. Vivian. A lawyer. I forced another chuckle, though it was weaker this time. A dinner with a lawyer, David? Should I be concerned? David exhaled, shaking his head slightly, his amusement barely concealed. Well, Nina, he said, voice slow and deliberate. Let's just say I find myself in an unfortunate predicament. A bit embarrassing, really. I never thought I'd need legal counsel, but here we are. Something twisted in my stomach. No, he's bluffing. He has to be bluffing. Still, I couldn't let him dictate this moment. I inhaled sharply, my expression smoothing into something confident, something unbothered. If David wanted to play games, I'd play them better. Without hesitation, I rose from my seat, my heels clicking against the polished floor. The restaurant felt suffocating now, every flickering candle casting shadows that felt too sharp, too exposed. With an effortless grace, I crossed the room, each step deliberate. I slid into the empty seat beside Vivian, flashing my most disarming smile. Vivian, I greeted smoothly. Pleasure to meet you. Vivian returned the nod, her face unreadable. I turned my attention back to David. So, darling, I purred, tilting my head. What's this about? Should I be concerned that my husband is having dinner with a lawyer? David studied me for a long moment before setting his glass down with slow, deliberate movements. A knowing smile curved his lips. You tell me, he murmured. Should I be concerned that my wife is having dinner with another man? I could feel it in the air, the slow, creeping sensation of a noose tightening around my throat. David wasn't here to confront me impulsively. No, this was orchestrated, a game in which I had unknowingly played the losing hand from the very beginning. Jared shifted in his seat, sensing the tension, but still unaware of just how deep this was about to go. Look, man, I don't know what's going on here, but Nina and I. David lifted a hand, cutting him off effortlessly. His gaze never left mine, sharp and unreadable. Too calm, too calculated. I don't need explanations, Jared. His voice was smooth, collected. I already have them. A single tap of his phone screen, and suddenly the restaurant's soft ambience was drowned out by a voice I recognized instantly. Jared's. Laughing. Bragging. Oh man, Wild doesn't even begin to cover it. The blood drained from my face. The recording continued, Jared's voice dripping with smug arrogance. If I'm not careful, she might wear me out. She's got energy for days. Every word felt like a slap. I'd spent months perfecting my deception, crafting airtight excuses, ensuring there were no loose ends. And yet, here it was. A single moment of arrogance from Jared, undoing everything. Jared went still, his smirk slipping away as the realization settled in. He hadn't just been caught. He had incriminated himself with his own damn words. I fought to keep my expression neutral, my mind spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. Think. I couldn't afford to panic. I let out a soft, breathy laugh, shaking my head as though amused by how ridiculous all of this was. David, seriously? I scoffed. You're basing your entire little gotcha moment on locker room talk. You do realize men exaggerate, don't you? David leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table. Oh, I do. His voice was quiet, deliberate, lethal. But I also don't make accusations without proof. Another tap on his phone. Another recording. This time, it was me. My voice. My words. Whispered conversations. Stolen moments I had carelessly believed were private. Words that now came back to haunt me in the worst way possible. I wish I had met you first. He doesn't excite me anymore. With David, it feels like I'm just playing a role. With you, I feel alive. I stopped breathing. Jared flinched beside me, realization hitting him hard. Jesus, he muttered. You recorded everything? David smiled, a slow, almost pitying expression. Not everything. He shrugged. But enough. The world around me seemed to shrink. My heart pounded, so hard I thought I might pass out. This wasn't just about getting caught anymore. This was ruin. I could feel it. The slow, merciless way David was dismantling me piece by piece, exposing every lie, every betrayal, without ever raising his voice or breaking his composure. He was enjoying this, and that terrified me more than anything else. I forced myself to breathe, to push down the rising panic clawing at my chest. I had survived worse. I had talked my way out of impossible situations before, turned disasters into minor inconveniences. I could still fix this. I straightened my shoulders, crossing my legs with feigned confidence. David, I said smoothly, this is childish. You're throwing a tantrum over a misunderstanding. If you were so concerned, why not just talk to me? His lips curved into something that might have been a smile, but it was cold, detached. I'd have talked to you, Nina. Plenty of times. He tilted his head, but it turns out I learned more from listening. I swallowed hard. Jared, to his credit, had gone quiet. I could feel his discomfort, the way he was now reevaluating everything. The way he had so confidently assumed this was just a fling, a game without consequences. David shifted slightly in his seat, his voice still maddeningly calm. But let's say, for a moment, that you're right. He gestured lazily. Let's say this is all just a misunderstanding. That I'm being paranoid, jealous, insecure. His eyes darkened. Then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. A flick of his wrist, and suddenly a manila envelope was placed on the table between us. I stared at it. Cold. Ominous. Final. Jared muttered. What the hell is that? David met my eyes, his gaze sharp as a blade. Divorce papers. I felt the breath get knocked out of me. The room blurred for a split second. I had spent so much time lying, manipulating, controlling the narrative, and in a single moment, the power had been ripped away from me. This wasn't supposed to happen. David should have been furious. He should have yelled, begged, pleaded, anything but this. Anything but the calm, calculated precision of a man who had already made up his mind. You can't be serious, I whispered. David exhaled softly, tilting his head. Nina, I'm dead serious. Jared gave a low whistle, leaning back. Damn, you came prepared. David's expression didn't change. Of course. Because this wasn't impulsive. This wasn't reactionary. This was revenge. And I was only just beginning to understand how deep it would go. For a long moment, the weight of the divorce papers in front of me felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. The dim restaurant lighting cast shadows over the stark white pages, each one spelling out the end of everything I had worked so carefully to maintain. I swallowed, forcing a steady breath as I tried to read David's expression. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. You're bluffing, I said, my voice softer than I intended. David leaned back in his seat, his arms crossing over his chest in that maddeningly calm way of his. He didn't look angry. He didn't look heartbroken. He looked free. That realization sent something sharp and ugly curling in my stomach. Am I? He mused, his lips curling into something resembling amusement. That's interesting. He tapped his finger against the papers. Because my lawyer doesn't think so. Vivian, his damn lawyer, gave a polite smile, folding her hands over the table. I can assure you, Mrs. Carter, that this is quite real. My skin burned at the formal use of my last name, as if I had already been reduced to just another client, just another case. Jared cleared his throat beside me, shifting in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with being caught in the middle of this. Look, I don't think I should be here for this. David smirked, waving him off. By all means, Jared, you're free to leave. You've already done more than enough. Jared hesitated, throwing me a quick glance, but I didn't even look at him. I couldn't. I was too busy staring at David, my mind racing to find a way out of this. Because I knew him. I knew how his mind worked. And David didn't play games unless he already knew he had won. I forced my lips to curve into a small, dismissive smile. So that's it. I scoffed. You get a couple of recordings, throw a tantrum, and now you're ending our marriage? David exhaled a slow breath, shaking his head. Nina, he said, almost patiently, this isn't a tantrum. This is justice. The way he said it, so steady, so certain, made my blood turn to ice. Justice. He wasn't just leaving me. He was making sure I suffered for it. I felt my pulse spike as my mind raced, searching for an angle, a weak spot, something I could use to shift the power back in my favor. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. David, don't do this here. Let's go home and talk. His lips twitched. Home. His voice was laced with quiet amusement. That's funny. I frowned. What did he mean by that? Before I could ask, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, gleaming keyring. And then, without breaking eye contact, he slid it across the table toward me. My house key. I blinked, stared at it. My fingers twitched against the edge of the table, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. No, I changed the locks this morning, David said lightly, as if discussing the weather. No. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. This wasn't just a divorce. He was cutting me out. I packed your things, he continued, his tone still infuriatingly casual. They should be at your sister's place by now. A quiet ringing filled my ears. My world tilted. You threw me out? David tilted his head slightly, as if considering his next words. Then, with the cruelest, most devastating smirk I had ever seen, he said, No, sweetheart, you threw yourself out. And that was the moment I realized I had lost. For the first time in my life, I felt powerless. The key sat on the table between us, gleaming under the restaurant's dim lights like a symbol of my downfall. My own husband, the man I thought I had wrapped around my finger, had just played me like a fool. I forced my lips to move, my voice coming out in a shaky whisper. You can't just throw me out, David. His smirk didn't waver. I didn't throw you out, Nina. I just let you go. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers trembling as I try to access my banking app. If he was serious about cutting me off, then I needed to act fast, pull out as much money as I could before he locked me out. But the second the app loaded, a red notification appeared on the screen. Access denied. Account frozen. My breath hitched. I clicked again. Nothing. Another account. Nothing. My credit cards declined. I looked up at him in horror. You cut off my money. David exhaled slowly, as if I had just asked him the most obvious question in the world. Of course, Nina. I gripped the phone tighter. That money is mine too, David. You can't just. I can. And I did. He leaned forward slightly, his tone still casual. You should have read the fine print when you signed those papers for our joint accounts. Turns out, I had more control over them than you realized. My stomach dropped. Jared let out a low whistle beside me. Damn, man. That's cold. David didn't even look at him. His focus was entirely on me. I felt the restaurant closing in around me, the walls pressing in as my perfect, untouchable life collapsed before my eyes. I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was losing everything. No house, no money, no control. And David knew it. He had planned this. I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms. You can't do this to me. His lips twitched. I already did. I stormed out of the restaurant, my breath coming in ragged gasps. No, this isn't happening. The cool night air hit my skin like a slap, but I barely felt it. I was too busy dialing my sister's number. She picked up after the second ring. Nina, let me in. I snapped. Now. A pause. Then, oh. You know, the way she said it sent fresh panic racing through me. Know what? She sighed. David called me this morning. Said you might need a place to stay. My heart stopped. David had been ahead of me this entire time. He had planned my downfall before I even knew I was falling. My sister let me stay, but not without judgment. Not without questions. I barely slept that night, my mind running circles around every single thing I just lost. By morning, I was on the phone with every lawyer I could find. I needed a way to fight back, but every single one gave me the same answer. David had locked me out. The prenup we signed years ago, ironclad. I felt my grip on reality slipping. This wasn't possible. I was supposed to be the one in control. I was supposed to have options. But David had left me nothing. And worst of all, he had moved on. 1 week later, I saw it. A photo of David, smiling, happy, with another woman. Not just any woman. Vivian, his damn lawyer. And that's when I knew he wasn't just done with me. He had erased me. I confronted him. I showed up at his office, uninvited, desperate, furious. But when I stormed into his space, ready to demand he undo this, he barely looked up from his desk. His eyes met mine, calm, cold, unbothered. I no longer mattered to him. You shouldn't be here, Nina. I swallowed hard, my voice barely above a whisper. You loved me once. David exhaled, leaning back in his chair. I did. A pause. A heartbeat. Then, but now, I don't feel a damn thing. And just like that, I was nothing. I used to believe that no matter what, I would always land on my feet. That I was smart enough, charming enough, and manipulative enough to get what I wanted. But now, sitting in my sister's cramped apartment with a half-empty glass of cheap wine, I felt something I had never felt before. Defeat. David had taken everything. He had planned this. Every safety net I had relied on was gone. The joint accounts? Frozen. The house? Locked out. My reputation? Destroyed. I had spent days calling every lawyer I could afford, which at this point meant none. Each one told me the same thing. I had no case. The prenup I once laughed off? Ironclad. The evidence against me? Overwhelming. David hadn't just left me. He had made sure I would never recover. If losing my money wasn't enough, the real punishment came when I stepped back into the world and realized how fast news spreads. People whispered about me. My so-called friends avoided my calls. The ones who had always admired my confidence now laughed behind my back. Worse, they respected David. I always knew he was too good for her. I heard one woman say at a dinner party I hadn't been invited to but accidentally saw on social media. She had it coming, another agreed. You don't cheat on a man like that and walk away unscathed. Walk away unscathed. I clenched my fists, so hard my nails bit into my palm. I had spent years crafting my image, being the woman everyone envied. And now, I was a cautionary tale. It had been a month of scrambling, of trying to regain some control. And then I saw it. A photo. David, smiling. And next to him, Vivian, not just standing beside him, holding his hand, laughing, radiant. His damn lawyer. I stared at the picture until my vision blurred. No, this isn't real. I told myself it was a PR stunt, that he was using her to make me jealous, that he wasn't actually happy. He couldn't be. I told myself he still loved me, but the way he looked at her in that picture, he never looked at me like that. And that's when it hit me. He had already moved on, and I was still drowning. I snapped. I drove to his office, heart racing, not knowing what I would say, but knowing I needed to say something. I needed him to see me, to remember who I was, to give me one last chance. I stormed past his receptionist, ignoring her protests. David, he was sitting behind his desk, a glass of whiskey in one hand, completely unbothered. He barely even looked surprised, as if he had been expecting this. I froze. David exhaled slowly, setting his glass down. You shouldn't be here, Nina. My breath hitched. You loved me once. A flicker of something crossed his face, but it was gone in an instant. I did, he admitted. Hope sparked in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, but now. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his desk, his gaze cold. I don't feel a damn thing. The hope shattered. He meant it. I could feel the finality in his words. I had lost him, completely. And worst of all, he had never been happier. I stumbled out of his office, the weight of everything suffocating me. David had erased me. He had moved on, rebuilt, and thrived. And I was nothing. For the first time in my life, I had no one left to manipulate, no one left to charm, no tricks left to play. I had played the game, and I had lost. Days passed. Weeks. I watched from the shadows as David's life flourished. He was respected, admired, untouchable, and I was a ghost. Once, I had controlled everything. Now, I was just a mistake he had overcome. Jared? He was long gone. The man I had risked everything for hadn't even bothered to check on me. Turns out, he had found someone new within days of my downfall. Turns out, I was just another conquest to him. I had betrayed my marriage for a man who never actually wanted me. Karma is a patient teacher. Months later, I saw him again. By accident. I was in a cafe, clutching a cheap coffee I could barely afford, when David walked in. I froze. He didn't notice me at first. He was too busy pulling out a chair for Vivian. She laughed at something he said, her hand brushing against his arm. And the way he looked at her, that was how a man looks at the woman he actually loves. I had never seen that look before. Not when he was with me. Because I had never deserved it. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to accept the truth. David had won. I sat there long after they had left, staring at my untouched drink. I had once thought I could cheat, lie, manipulate my way through life. That I was too smart to ever get caught. But now, I had nothing. And no one. Regret tastes like bitter coffee and loneliness. If I had just been honest. If I had just loved in the way he had deserved. If I had never underestimated him. Maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't be sitting here alone. But the thing about betrayal, it always comes back. And in the end, David didn't just walk away. He made sure I would never forget the price of what I'd done.